Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Nieland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. Today we're exploring one of the most expansive themes we've ever brought to this podcast, associations, universal, celestial, human, and divine. At every level of creation, relationships shape reality, from the associations of the vast universes to the layered governments of seraphic and celestial beings, to the everyday human connections that form our spiritual characters. All of these reflect a single truth. We live in a universe built on relationship. And at the highest level, the most intimate association of all is the growing union between God and the mortal soul. Joining me today is Mark Turin, researcher, teacher, and longtime student of revelatory cosmology. Mark brings a unique combination of clarity, humility, and lived experience, helping us make sense of these immense topics without losing sight of the personal spiritual journey at the center of it all. Today's conversation will stretch the far reaches of creation to the inner life of your own soul and how these associations frame our place in living, relationable, and relatable universe. So welcome, Mark. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's
Excited
a pleasure
to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, and especially with this topic. And a lot of people ask about how can I relate and what's in there just beyond God and ourselves. What do we find there? So let's begin our conversation diving into the universal associations. So let's begin at the highest level with universal associations. In this segment, we explore how every part of the universe, from the smallest creature to the highest deity, is woven into a single interconnected system. We'll talk about the thought adjuster as the ultimate bridge between human experience and divine reality, and how universal associations reveal a cosmos moving towards unity, cooperation, and the emergence of the supreme. So what can you tell us about these associations, Mark?
Well, from my own personal experience, I grew up in the generation that was really searching for meaning in the 70s. And there was a lot of seeking for different things. The Hare Krishnas and the gurus were coming to America. And I was part of that. I don't know if you saw the movie, The Jesus Revolution.
Yeah,
That's come
exactly. And
out.
it takes place to just exactly at that time, right?
That was my era. That was
Okay.
me in that group. In fact, my brother-in-law went to the church that was shown in that movie
Okay.
that they set up there. And so that's when my search began. I was in my 20s and just began asking questions, why are we here? What's God's purpose for us? And I think that's kind of the key to understanding truth is you have to ask the questions and God will reveal it, what your purpose here is. And you can't stop asking questions. Even when you get some information or you think you know something, you have to continue to ask the question.
Yeah.
And one of my recent questions is, how come God created us the way we are? We go through these stages in our life. What's the purpose of that?
Mm-hmm.
And what I've done is I've thought of the different stage. God is in the process of creating us constantly, whatever age we're at. And I've kind of plotted it out or think of it as the Fibonacci sequence. You know that sequence, 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
so I would talk about that in the sense that you're 1 year old, you're in your mother's womb, and you know nothing. You're completely supported by your support structure of your mother, and then you're born. And then the next number is number 2. You become 2 years old, and they call that the terrible twos.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because you discover you have a will. Mom wants to feed you prunes, and you don't want prunes, and you kick them off your
Yeah.
your high chair. So the terrible twos, you discover you have a will. And then you have a lot of stuff to learn. You have to be potty trained. You have to tell mom when you got to go to the bathroom. So now you're getting into your will is getting directed. And if you come out of the terrible twos, you go to the 3. So now you're learning to control your will, to listen to mom and dad, to follow their direction, to not pull your sister's hair. So you finally get to the potty train at 3. You're doing pretty good now. You know when you gotta go to the bathroom, so you're making progress. And then we come into the next number is 5. So along this first part of your journey, you're learning the difference between right from wrong. That's one of the first lessons you learn as a child. And when you learn right from wrong, you can make a moral choice. God indwells you at that point. That's a major milestone in our earth career is when the thought adjuster or God's presence comes within our mind and works with us to help us because there's more big decisions to be made as we go along.
Can I just right there? I mean, this is I think very important, and I like that you mentioned the sequence, the Fibonacci sequence, and it's not the sequence. Just let me just explain it briefly. Is you add the previous number to the to the latter number. So, like you're saying, it's 1, then you have 2, and then the addition of 2 and 1 becomes 3, and then the addition of 3 and 2 becomes 5, and that's how you have the sequence, and you can see it in nature. And I wanted to touch on that because one of the things that I do, which is the Mayan cosmology and the way they understand time, and I call it the human matrix pattern. It is a pattern, and that is a sequence, and it kind of goes mapped very similar to what you're saying. You know, the different steps, and I mean, there's different milestones, and you're saying in our evolutionary progression that it's not only just physical but also mental and spiritual. And it's interesting the way that you're talking about this, and especially the moment when you just said it, when we have we can see what's right and wrong, when we can distinguish right and wrong, and we can make a choice. And tell us, because I think this is very important, what happens when we take that first moral decision.
We get the gift of the indwelling of the universal Father. The fragment of God begins to indwell us and keeps guiding us through all these decisions that we face in our life. So we're 5 years old. The next number is 8. So as a young child, if you have good home life and reinforcement from your mother and father, your parents and your siblings, whatever your situation, you learn right from wrong. You learn the difference. It's not if you can do something and not get caught. You know, a kid might try to do something and not get caught. That's not right from wrong. You know, you don't do something that's wrong, basically. So you grow up, you're 8. Then what's the next milestone? It's 13. What happens at 13? Hormones. A whole new change in your whole physical development is going to kink in. Hair is going to grow in places you never thought of before. And just, you know, all new kinds of impulses and chemistry to your body is taking place. So again, more moral choices, moral decisions you have to make about that. And you notice you're getting stronger too. Your body's a little more athletic. You can do more, you can run faster as you go through your teens, and you really are making a lot of changes physically. But also morally, you have to make decisions. You have to right from wrong becomes even more important. You got a license, you drive a car. Do I do the speed limit? Do I drink beer before I drive or after I drive? You know, you have to confront all these rights from wrongs. And then you reach the age of 21. Now, finally, say you've met somebody, you get married at 21. These are rough numbers, plus or minus,
Mm-hmm.
but so you get married at 21. And so now you're the parent. And so what's the next age in the sequence of Fibonacci? It's 34. So you're 34 and your child is 13. If you had a child at 21, just to say a young couple has a child. So
Yeah.
now you're parenting. So you have to assume a whole nother role as you're a caretaker of this precious child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you become their guide also.
Yeah.
And so they get older, they reach 21, and you go to the next number, is you're 54.
Yeah.
Now you're a grandparent. Your child is 21 and you're 54. You assume the role of the grandparent. So you have a whole different uh, interaction now with this young child. You help them uh, grow up. The next number is 89. And so when you're 89, you're a great grandparent. And so this is how the generations pass on the wisdom to the younger generations. There's a carryover from as you get older. I was lucky I had really good grandparents. I was able to be around both sets of my grandparents for my most of my life. And I have so many good memories of that, how they helped me and the wisdom I got from them. It was really one of the memories is my grandmother teaching me the Lord's Prayer. She would babysit me. And so that memory was like burned into my brain. And I was probably only, 4 or 5 years old when it happened. It was helping me get in touch with the divine that lives within me.
Mm-hmm.
And once you realize that your purpose here is a spiritual purpose. And really what God is trying to do with us is to recruit us. And I've kind of looked at this as a recruitment, just like if you were going to play football for the 49ers and they said, "You're a really good athlete. So we want to recruit you, Santiago. So we're going to send a trainer to train you and a counselor to help you get behind the game of football." Well, God does the same thing. He sends us a guardian angel, two of them. So we have a spiritual agency to work us through this whole process that when we started out
Okay.
that are there to help us, but we have to ask for the help. We have to seek the Father's will.
Yeah.
And when we do, we God responds to that. God responds to the questioning. That's really the beauty of this process. It's a creating process, and God is trying to recruit us to be part of not playing the Super Bowl, but playing the Spirit Bowl,
Yeah. And that's,
the
I mean,
concentric spirit.
yeah, and I like that. And what you're saying is that there's these universal associations. I mean, what you're painting is that we have, there's a woven interconnected system that, helps each other. We contribute our own, these other celestial beings and more down to earth beings as calm also contribute. So how is that interwoven, and what role do we play, or as humans?
We have to keep our inquisitiveness of why we're here. What does God want me to do with my life? That becomes a
Hmm.
fundamental question. Is what choices does he want me to make? I can make my own choices, but where does that lead me? If I need to know what is God's will for my life and ask God. And the path is the truth, search for truth, beauty, and goodness
Okay.
in our life.
That's a
And
good reference. I think that's something, if somebody out there is taking notes, I think these are the three basic things: truth, beauty, and goodness. As long as you're striving for that, I think your compass is straight, right?
right, that's kind of like that you're making the right decisions when you are seeing expressions of truth, beauty, and goodness. Because why does God want you on his team? Because God's gift to you is to express his divine qualities through your personality. That's a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
That's more than the Super Bowl, right?
It's beautiful. Yeah, and
That's
imagine
more
that.
than the quarterback in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, can you repeat that? I think that's pretty beautiful what you just said.
God wants to use your personality, your unique personality. There's no other personality like it, to express his divinity through you, merge with you, fuse with you. So you're an ambassador of his universe. That's our that's our destiny. When you look at it in context of It's huge. And God has deployed a lot of resources to help you do that through your celestial agency of your guardian seraphim and their assistance and the thought adjuster. So you have at least 3 or 4 spirit counselors
Inside you.
attending to you, attending
Right?
to you,
They're within you, and that's what's really beautiful. It's not
and
that
they're
there's an
around you.
angel, and they're exactly, and they're within you. It's interesting. I
They're
love that.
coaching you.
Yeah.
Basically, they're your coaches. And when I started to think of this in just those terms, it became more real to think of it as they're recruiters. And the story in the Arancha book is a recruitment to tell you how glorious the universe truly is. And the big help in all this has been knowing about Jesus, because to know what God wants of us and how we can live is just to look at Jesus' life, explore how Jesus lived. And we're
Yeah,
so
follow it.
lucky to have that recital in the Urantia papers.
It's really following his example, and I think that's what's really beautiful. And it's not just the divine nature of Jesus. It's also the human nature that's more relatable, that we can really look at and we can relate to, and see that even him, even he had to go through that. So I think that's really important, if that we always keep that in mind.
That is so important, because more I find out about Jesus, the more I love him, the
Yeah,
more I want to be like him. He's such an inspiration. And the interesting thing is, Jesus is inspiring to people of all religions.
exactly.
He's inspires people who've never even touched a religious book.
And
He's
that's
real. The real it helped me. At one point in my life, I felt the peace and love of Jesus before I knew anything. It's amazing. It was, uh, and the more I find out about Jesus, the struggles that he went through and how he lived his life, it's just exciting to be a part of that. It's better than a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think, and it's really important, like what you were saying. It's not that I like a term that we use. It says Jesus before Christianity. So it's not, within the structures or dogmas, and not that we're criticizing or putting down any Christian religion, because there's many. I was raised Catholic, but it's really the essence of Jesus, or the story of Jesus, and the nature of Jesus before it went through Christianity. So when you look at that lens, and it's very interesting, because I know a lot of Jews, that when you present the most Jewish version of that, and they understand that, they can also relate. So I mean, that's the universality of Jesus, that it's not just for Christians, but for everybody, because he is for everybody.
Yeah.
Basically.
There was he has the simplest uh, information that you can. Just love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's it.
As simple as that. Exactly. It's
In
things
one
as
sentence.
simple. Yeah, yeah,
You
and
know.
I like one of the things. This is something that I learned in because I used to go to, even though I grew up in Mexico, I used to spend a lot of summers in Texas, and went to a summer camp as a camper, as a counselor, and there was a very beautiful concept, and basically it's the same camps that that had the floods, the beginning, or right during summer there was a tragedy. I used to go, and I used to work there at that camp, and
Huh?
there was a beautiful concept called the Uncle Bill's team. And the story of this Uncle Bill, it's a long story, but his motto, and we were part of his team, was God first, other second, I am third. So just that concept of putting those levels I learned that when I was 10, and I love it.
That's a good model to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, yeah, and being in a camp, there's a brotherhood there, and it's just boys there, and the camaraderie, and the sharing. I think that's really, really what we're talking about, the associations. In this second segment, we'll shift to seraphic and celestial governments, the vast administrative network that keeps the universe functioning in harmony. We'll explore the roles of seraphim, their hierarchies, and how celestial administration guides worlds like ours through crisis, growth, and destiny. This is the architecture of divine order, intricate, purposeful, and always oriented towards the uplift of creation. So what can you tell us about these associations beyond just the human? And we're going to talk about the one about with us and God, but these associations, these celestial associations.
The celestial government is looking at us to that we're in a state of creation. We're being created.
Okay.
We're not a finished product. We're being remodeled, or we're being
We're a
brought
work
up
in
to a point.
progress.
A work in progress, exactly. And the key to the whole thing for mortals is to surrender our authority to God. The Most High's rule in the kingdom of men. And if we can get that in our own lives, that God rules in our lives, we see the bigger picture that has been revealed to us in the fifth epical revelation, of course, that we see it's a gigantic enterprise that's going on behind the scenes that we don't see, that it's huge, that the resources that are deployed of the spiritual agency on the planet, it's immense, you
Yeah.
know.
We
In a
marvel
perfect world,
of the human industry, but if you look at the universal industry, the machinery behind it,
cosmic
it's
industry.
exactly cosmic industry. It's beautiful. Yeah, continue, please, Mark.
Yes. And normally we would have that in the vision of the planetary princes, and there would be a central location on the planet that we could go to, and we could see spiritual celestial beings, we could see extraterrestrial beings, and we could see the glory of the God. But because of the rebellion on our planet, that's hidden to us. But we do have the life and teachings of Jesus to still get an understanding of what God has in store for us. And you kind of see it today. There's a lot of good things happening. One of the big things is the celestial music, the Christian music that's out there is so inspiring. I've been on a couple cruises with Mercy Me, the band, and also Zach Williams. And the people who go to those are from all different sectarian religions. But the music bonds people together. And the Urantia book does talk about a celestial musician who could really music is in another language,
Yeah.
that it's a vibrational language. It's harmonies and melodies, and it expresses stuff to us that words cannot express.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's a whole study about it. Mothers who sing to their newborns have the newborns grow up better, they're in better moods, they're happier, they eat more. And there's the nursery rhymes across all the cultures are very similar in tempo and in tone and how they're sung to their children, to the infants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So music is a part of God's language to us. It's a way that God can talk to us, is through music.
Definitely.
I hear
Definitely.
songs and they bring tears to my eyes, no matter how many times I hear them. Some certain songs just
Well,
tear me
the
up.
music has changed the world many times. I believe that, and as a musician, back in my 20s, I used to be a recorded artist. I put a couple of albums, and I can I can tell you that even the association process, because I used to compose with my band members, and the association and what really comes out of that association, and you put it's really beautiful because in our case, what we always our policy was that it doesn't matter if you come out with the greatest riff or the greatest whatnot. If it can be as it is a very impressive musical part, but if it doesn't fit the song, it can't go into the song. If it sometimes it happens, and, there's a certain balance that the song needs. And if you're just trying to put in something in there, you have to have the maturity, you have to have the humility and everything that you can always say, it's not benefiting the song and it can put it apart. So even that is really important. And when you're associated, you're creating music, because we were creating music, and also the state that you go into, every time that a song goes, you go into like another dimension, because it's really, you start with a count and you go into a tempo, and everything that happens there happens musically. And you can be with your band members, looking at each other, what's going to happen, but you can communicate without words. It's really magical.
Yeah.
And the way, like what you're saying, what makes you feel. And I remember as a kid, my dad, and up to now, what he does is he always has music in my house, in his house. So I grew up just listening every day, it's especially in the weekends. And I remember I would go and just get close to the speakers, and it wasn't the melodies or it wasn't the words. It was something that within the harmonic changes that would just, make me happy, just make me feel very good. So I was
Right.
there, and it just made me happy. But anyways, I
Yep.
just wanted to make that point there.
Well, there's a subconscious thing that music affects. Like if you're hearing a song, you'll begin tapping your fingers, or you'll begin to integrate with the beat that you're listening to. My mom was a piano teacher. After she got married, moved to our house, uh, she bought a Steinway piano, and she gave piano lessons to every kid in the neighborhood. I mean, they all came over to her house to take lessons. And so I've been, around music my whole life too. And it 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 really is a gift to have that in your life in some way. Whether you're playing it, listening to it. I used to play.
Appreciate it.
Well,
Once you really appreciate music, and really, uh, you know have its magical effects, it's really, it lifts your life, I
well,
believe.
what's really neat about the music today is people are singing about their relationship with God.
Hmm.
They're expressing their gratitude, their love, and their emotions about their relationship with God, their thankfulness for fixing their lives and doing all this stuff for them. And that appreciation that comes through is really a wonderful, worshipful thing to share,
Hmm.
you know? And I think it's helping to transform this world into a more spiritual direction. I really think it's a key thing that the celestial agencies are helping to promote is the Christian music venues. Uh,
And now that you're talking about, the celestial agencies and music, and, a lot of the times what we associate, part of the angel archetype is the harp, the angel playing the harp.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and
That's a good
they're
point.
musicians. Yeah,
Now
I
they
mean,
play a guitar, electric guitar. They've
they've
moved up.
evolved. Yeah, but it goes to show that even in those primitive concepts, or very basic concepts, that put it that way, of celestial beings, there was art there. We were talking about
Yes,
truth,
that's an
beauty, and
interesting
goodness.
observation. That's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting.
But it was always with art, and we're talking about truth, beauty, and goodness, and sometimes we take beauty for granted. And when we live in a beautiful place, and it's okay if you see, beautiful sunsets and everything, it's beautiful. But when you go to ugly places, and believe me, I've lived in places, and I always tell first world country citizens, you don't know what you really have after you really realize it, when you after you go to third world, and where there's not
Yeah.
even water, and you look at the ugliness. And I'm not criticizing. I mean, the situations is not that people want to live like that, but the circumstances put you in an ugly place, and that really, you know, it's really hard. But really, beauty, and that's something that we always say, oh yeah, let's talk about truth. I mean, let's be truthful. Let's be good, but strive for beauty. Try to get art, and that's something that I like about the Mayans. The end game, or their formula, which is basically the concept of the supreme. It says time equals art. Time, what happens is it's perfecting us, and that's the concept of the supreme. We're evolving towards the supreme. So I like that, and it's really an artistic evolution that we're becoming more artistic as we evolve. That's the way I view it.
Yeah, that's a good point. We appreciate beauty in new ways, you know? I was in Bali this last spring for a wedding for, my wife's nephew, and it's a
Hmm.
poor country, it's a third world country, but the people are so gracious and friendly. They greet like this. It's this is their greeting. I go, "That is such a great expression of goodness, of graciousness to see
Of
that."
beauty, of
Of just
and trying to
thank
get
you.
yeah, and it's like the lotus flower, and the concept of the lotus flower is that it grows on top of the swamp, and that's what we have to do. I have to take out the beauty and the art, even in those circumstances. Once we associate with them, I think that's where we can get all the art. And you can hear any not only musicians, but any artist can tell you, I tapped into the source. I was inspired. Nobody tells you, yeah, I thought about that. A true artist tells you, something touched me.
Yeah, and, you know, there's cosmic art that's been created of to inspire us that the universe is bigger than what we directly see, and, helps us to get in sync with the purpose of eternity and the purposes of our existence here. We're in a creative soup kind of a situation where God is creating us minute by minute. He wants to reveal the most truth that he can to us, but we have to ask for it. We have to continually say, God, what do you want me to do today? But you know what? He's got a lot of projects going on. There's hundreds of projects you can get involved in. And that's exciting to know too, you know. Um,
Yeah, I think this is important, and a lot of people say, "Oh, this God is not going to lead me," but He does, and the associations, and sometimes you think, "Oh, I need an angel or some spiritual being to appear to me," but it's really the mortal beings that are appearing in your life that are guiding you, and when you realize that, and when you open to that and start living in that mode, then you can start seeing the magic, and you can start seeing those celestial associations even in the human form.
yeah, one of what I think is one of the most great projects going on right now is the whole production of The Chosen.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to be a part in that play as an extra, my wife and her girlfriend in season 5. And they're wonderful people that are a part of it. It was interesting because you come into it and you meet people from other religions. There was Catholics that were helping out. There was Mormons that were helping out. There was
Yeah.
evangelical Christians that were helping out. It was all coming together to be a part of telling Jesus' story. And that was really special to see all that. Everyone was so happy. There was 600 of us in this
Yeah.
in our particular scene.
No rifts, no conflicts, and now that you mention that, it's interesting, and I was gladly surprised that somebody from the Church of Latter Day Saints approached me and participated in the podcast. Actually, it's going to be airing right before the week before this one, and and we had a good conversation, but and he was very openly, and he said, the God revealed through scripture, and he said, and God reveals through the source of the book that you read, however you call it. So I see God in all. I said, well, that's a lot of progress, and I really like that. I see that this evolution is coming, and that we don't see the necessary rifts and differences, but rather what brings us together and makes us more yeah, a united family, let's say.
Do you know how they wrote the script for The Chosen?
Yeah, you told me it was different. I think a
They
rabbi.
had a Catholic priest and a
Yeah,
rabbi and a evangelical, different, and they had to decide upon how to tell this story that, they could all agree on.
it's a
That
story that
just
we
to
we all know, but
Yeah,
how in what
but
context?
right. in slightly different ways. But that is so good to see that
Yeah,
there's unity, especially around Jesus, which
yeah, yeah.
you know
So
those who have seen me have seen the Father, said Jesus, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the best revelation of God that you can study and know as a mortal.
yeah.
That's so
And not only in
such
this
a
planet, but throughout many planets that can take
yeah,
that model.
yeah. It's again, it can't say enough praise about Jesus, actually.
We're talking about Jesus as the model and what's happening, and that's he is the way, in his model. So we finally arrived to the heart of today's episode: God and moral association, the mystery of adjuster fusion, or the divine fragment of God within us fusing. This is the ultimate relationship, the merging of the divine will and the human will into a single eternal being. We'll explore what fusion means, why it's destinies of evolving mortals, and how your daily choices prepare you for this profound union. This is where the finite meets the infinite and becomes something new. So what can you tell us about this fusion, Mark, that we kind of talk about, mention? So what's really happening and how are we associating with God?
Well, the fusion comes when you've sealed the deal with the infinite. When you've a reliable, mm, a reliable and dedicated ambassador of the goodness of God can be expressed through your personality.
I like that.
And
Can you please repeat it? I'm gonna, and when you say those quotes, I like them. Please, can you repeat it?
when you're a reliable partner with the Father, and you can express the goodness and graciousness and divine qualities through your personality, through your little mortal personality that you've worked on since you were 2 years old, and you in the terrible twos, and as you grew up and you finally matured, you got to a point where God can actually rely on you. You're going to show up to work on time. You're going to, take care of all the duties that you need to do. And he has some great, great projects for you to work on, to be a part of. That's exciting that you can relax, that you're in God's hands. He's really controlling the ship. Just let him control it. But you have to say, not my will, but thy will be done. Let him steer the ship through the storms.
And like what you're saying, because a lot of there's a confusion in true liberty. A lot of people confuse this and say, I need to be completely unhinged and not be accountable, but that doesn't work. If we're all part of this perfect universe, we have to abide by certain laws, and they're not restringent laws. They're not human laws. They're divine laws, and that's why we have to understand they're designed by this super mind, the most high, the highest mind that has the structure and that allows that freedom that we have to choose, and that's the beauty about it. You don't have to do it. Your choices. And when you realize that, when you put your hands at yourself in God's hands and you let him guide you and you go through this evolutionary path and you grow and then you start to worship and you be grateful and, start really enjoying and, even the hardships in life, that sometimes you want to steer away from. Even in some cases you embrace them because you know the transformative power they have. So every instant becomes really magical and really a moment to grow. And that's when you basically give, like you're saying, you say, not my, but your will be done. And that's so important.
But the other interesting part of this is God puts us in partnerships with creatures very different from ourselves. Very different. You think about a man and a woman, they're totally different. Psychologically, physically, they come together, and what do? They create a child. They couldn't do it on their own. They have to work together to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the condition that we will have to get used to in our eternity, to
Throughout
working with
eternity.
beings and creatures totally unlike ourselves, but have a different skill set than us. And when we combine our skills, we can do things that we could not do otherwise. You think about the
Definitely.
Trinity, how the Trinity has the different skills and the different domains that they are expertise at. That's a remarkable quality of what God does. And basically it's God partnering you with beings and creatures different from yourself.
Well, basically, the existence started with that partnership, that first partnership where God said, he thought of the Son and, associated with him. I mean, that triggered the whole existence, the whole sequence of existence. So if God associated, I mean, why? I mean, what's in it for us? Why
Well,
can't we? Yeah,
you couldn't be more different than a mortal like we are of animal origins versus and a divine being presence of God living in us. And then also with the seraphim, another celestial being that's coaching us and helping us with, their assistance. And if you have seraphim, you should give them a name. I've named mine Budge and Nudge.
you told
You
me.
should name your angels. You have two angels that are intimately associated. They know all your weaknesses and all your strengths, and they're there to coach you and help you. And so they want to be your best friend.
Let's put it that way.
You
Yes.
should be your best friend with your spiritual agency, right? And they have a sense of humor. Don't worry. They've seen your poopy diapers. They know all about you. They want to laugh with you.
Exactly. That's the point. It's not that they're going to be reprimanding you or you have to be this righteous and upright and holy. No, I think that they indulge in your evolution. I think it's not the perfectness that you will eventually be, but it's that process and that struggle that you go through that they really enjoy.
Well, you're basically we're animal like in our nature, being mortal, you know. And if you've ever had pets, sometimes they pee on the carpet, but do you beat them? No, you just you try to train them so they don't.
Yeah, you teach
And
them.
that's what it's like, but you still love your pets, you love your kids. But anyways, it's a good sense of humor is a good thing to have as you progress through this journey. And um, that's part of joy. It's a joyful journey. It's not easy, but there's joy to be had in the spiritual journey for sure.
Definitely, definitely, and I think that these associations and I mean the picture that you're painting is very uplifting because you're not alone, and that really when you're talking about the different things that we're going to work together and the projects that we're going to be doing together. I mean, you kind of think, I mean, the different skill sets that each being
Yeah.
is going
Yeah.
brings, that just makes you wonder and the types of endeavors that we're going to be doing and really excites you. I mean, that's really something interesting. So moving on with what you were saying, and I think you were mentioning a very important point. It's this fusion, and we're talking about when we decide to manifest, and that beautiful statement that you made. But how do we, apart from doing God's will, how do we get to that point in our lives? As somebody that's listening to us and is saying, but I have to go to a 9 to 5 job and it's really hard and I have a shitty boss. And how can you go beyond the mundane and really live this?
Well, see, the beauty of God's skills is that he can work with you whatever situation you're in. You could be a dishwasher in a busy restaurant, and God is still there. I have a friend who, as a young man, found Jesus and really was excited about his personal relationship with Jesus. And he had a job of going in a shipping container and finding packages that he had a list. And so he had to go in these shipping containers and find different packages with hundreds of different addresses on them. And he would go in there and he would ask Jesus, Jesus, help me find this package. this so and so Johnson address in New Jersey. Help me find it." And he would find the packages so fast that he got the best employee for the company, and other
Really?
employees got jealous of him because he was so quick at finding the packages, and he asked Jesus to help him to do it. And to me, I that is a remarkable
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
to know that Jesus will help you.
And so
You got a flat
simple.
tire, he'll help you fix it,
Yeah, something that I don't want to say simple, ordinary. Something so ordinary, maybe, it's like you're saying, changing a flat tire, or maybe looking for, I would never thought of that,
fixing
asking.
something or something.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I remember, back in the day when you had to have like a TV guide, and where people that didn't live in the US, we had, like the satellite dish TV guide, which was like a huge thing. And it was like a monthly thing. And you couldn't watch TV because you had to travel through a lot of satellites. I remember being in my house, I was probably about 8 years old. And we couldn't find it. It was like 2 days and we couldn't find the darn book. And suddenly, I remember I saw the Bible and I started praying. I said, Jesus, please show me where it is. And I remember in that instant going and opening, the last, and it was something that it was inside the dining room, something that you would never, and you would never put a book in there, but nobody went to look there. But it was, in that moment when I asked, boom, I said, the furniture in there, and I opened it up and it was right there. But yeah, it
Yep.
is, it is. And so,
Isn't that remarkable?
yeah,
That's totally remarkable that they would help you with these mundane little tasks that you wouldn't think they're too important, too busy. The point is that you asked and then you got an answer.
and it was sincere, I wasn't like, "Oh,
That's
come
the
on, help
key,
me." It's not like, "Oh, come on, God, please help
you
me win the
know?
lottery." Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. But, for something
Yeah,
that's
they're
like
more
this,
than parking angels, right? Everyone
yeah,
wants to know that my parking angel found me a place to park. Well, maybe your parking angel will have you park like a mile away so you get the exercise. You never, you
exactly,
know,
exactly, exactly,
you
exactly.
know, but the key is the personal relationship you have with your spiritual agency,
Yeah,
the amount of sharing that you do with your spiritual agency, which includes your thought adjuster and your angels. You don't have to worry about the the right person will get the right message. You
yeah,
can pray to the universal Father, or you can ask your angel to find you a parking place. But they have their tasks that they can do and they're good at. But the whole thing is the key to your progress is, are you good at relationships? That's the key. Relationships. And the first primal relationship is with your paradise father, because God wants a partnership with you. That's the second thing. Are you good at partnerships? Have you ever been in a partnership, a business partnership, or, a marriage partnership? Uh, but that's the key. It's integration with partnerships, and whether it's your angels, whether it's the universal father, or whether it's your grandchildren. It's your ability to have relationships and partnerships.
yeah,
That's really
yeah.
the key to everything, you know? Because
And
as we practice that and we get those skills, we become better ambassadors for expressing the divinity through of God who's merged with us through our personality.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the relationships, and of course, I mean, it's very simple, or not simple, but it's easier to have, when it's a loving relationship, it's a positive relationship, the easy relationships. That's God is easy to find, but when you have, those difficult relationships that you have to overcome, and it's not
Yeah,
just saying, "Oh, I need to be, I need to think beautiful thoughts." And there's conflict sometimes, with relatives that do
yeah,
not bring the best out of you, And sometimes I always say, there's when you have, not that you have to just dwell in those negative or bad thoughts, but sometimes it's like throwing up, you need to, get that out so you can understand what you're feeling and say, why am I mad at this? And at first it's, you're up over here and everything is, just you're angry. But once you start, project, taking it out and looking at it and analyzing it and realizing that that's not you, it's the situation or it's the circumstances. And that maybe, and sometimes, and this is always hard to do, it's saying, it's not about me, it's about the other person. So even if they're just, bawling me out or calling me out or doing whatever, you have to, keep your cool, you have to keep your temper, and you have to do what's best for them, even if it's hard. In
And you
spite.
know what really I learned from is reading about Jesus and the relationships he had, and some were very difficult.
Yeah.
They
Even
weren't
his
all smooth.
parents, especially with his parents, I think.
Yeah, with his parents and with his younger brother, he went to jail with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and with Judas, I mean, he had some tough relationships to navigate through. But the beauty is if you study Jesus and you wanna know about how did Jesus navigate through his life, there's a resource for you, The Life and
Exactly.
Teachings of Jesus, which, I you know, it's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna inspire you, and you're gonna learn how to do it. How did Jesus handle the difficulties in his life, and he had a ton of them,
Yeah. No,
that's
totally. And I like that you brought this up because we're basically going to close the podcast with this. But I'm glad that you brought this up because we have shared, the source of a lot of what we talk about, which is the Rancho book. I mean, you can read it, but we've created new materials or works that take that information, the lives and teachings of Jesus that Mark is talking about, and we have what's called Discover Jesus. You can go there. It's a practical study, one-on-one with you. You don't have to have anybody. That's why we call it Discover Jesus, because it's a personal journey for you to discover Jesus. And you can go through his lifetime. You can go through the different events, like these situations, the different people that he met, his relationships. So I encourage you to visit. You can check out our link tree. You can check out not only Discover Jesus, but a lot of other resources that we've created. So you can look at, you can learn about what Mark is talking about. So I invite you all. So
alright.
Mark, any closing remarks before we say goodbye?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and it's been great to be able to discuss this with you. And I hope to hear some of your music if it's still out there, and if you're still playing it. I'd like to hear it.
Well,
That's kind of one
yes.
of my
Well, you can.
hobbies now that I'm kind of semi-retiring is going to be to play more music and to study it and everything.
Well, I'll just because you asked, I'll make this little commercial. But yes, I don't play that much anymore because I don't have keyboards with me. But you can look us up at iMusic, iTunes Music, or Spotify. My band was called Satin Dolls. You can look at there. It's not the song, but my band was Satin Dolls. You can look it over there. You get
All
so
right.
the people that do know who I am can check it over there.
All right,
Who
I'll
I
do
used
that.
to be over there. But anyways, thank you, Mark, for being here. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, all of you, for visiting. Remember to, if you liked it, subscribe, put a notification so you know we're coming up. And especially if you like what we're talking about, share with other people. Maybe they'll find something worthwhile in our conversation. So I'm Santiago Neeland. This is The Divine Within. And take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.